I would like to start this video by thanking anybody that happened to participate in Different Fights Black Lives Matter stream on Monday. It sounds like it did quite well, and it just means a lot to me to know that our community does care about what's going on in the world. So my previous video was how to play Shadow Paladins on a budget, basically. This is the more complete competitive build that I have been able to build. There are way better lists out there, with 4 dragons, 4 overlords, 4 domains. This is just what I'm working with. I still think it'll be interesting to show how I decided to fill in my missing slots, because 12 triple rares is not easy to accomplish for the everyday player. So the goal of this deck, it's kind of crazy. It is to have very explosive turns with card draw, board control, and 2 crit swings. Shadows are in a weird place. They are definitely in the top 3 alongside Royals and Kagero. They are the most explosive, but that means they are also the most fragile. So what will happen is if you do draw into your pieces, like your domains and your PBOs, you will have a pretty simple game plan. But if you miss your pieces, you will kind of be slugging along throughout the game. It doesn't mean you'll lose, but it does mean you're going to have to try a little harder to push for the win. So going through the deck, I was lucky enough to pull a PBO and a domain out of the same pack, so I had a good start. I decided to go crafting wise towards PBO over Phantom Blaster Dragon and domain. I decided that having Overlord is more important than Dragon, because you need to Persona Blast with PBO to get the full potential out of him. His ability is that first he does have cross ride, so if you have a Phantom Blaster Dragon in your soul, he gets plus 2k continuously, which means he is a 13k butt on your opponent's turn. He has a Persona Blast, so when he attacks you can discard another PBO, and then he gets plus 10k and a crit. On top of the Persona Blast, he also has another ability in which you can counterblast 2, sack a unit, and then pop an opponent's rear guard. This is what kind of makes PBO very interesting compared to the End or Assure Dragon, which both also have Persona Blast. The thing with Overlord is that you can play 1 copy of him and he still works. You can still get your cross ride numbers and you can still do your 1-for-1 trades. While playing Dote or Azure Dragon, you need to play basically a full play set. Obviously, to make Overlord work, you also want Dragon. Dragon has the ability that if you have Blaster Dark in your soul, he gets plus 1k continuously, so he's an 11k on your opponent's turn. He also has the ability on which you can counterblast 2, sack 3 units, retire an opponent's rear guard, preferably an interceptor, then he gets plus 10k and a crit. This makes it so that on turn 3, you can have a lot of pressure on the board, while at the same time controlling what your opponent has on his side of the board, because you can technically pop their back row if the interceptors are not causing you an issue. Now, like I said in the free-to-play video, you can spend 200 VP medals on getting a promo art. I think if Shadow Paladins are definitely your thing, you should maybe go a couple into it. I've only decided to go 1 so far, because you can search for him with Javelin. We are also playing 4 copies of Dark Mage. He really helps when we're trying to either use Phantom Blaster Dragon or PBO to do our trading, because compared to our other plussing units in the deck like Domain, his is technically free. It is worse because you have to place the card on the board, so if it is a PG, you will be losing it, but it's still plussing on the board, which means it'll be easier to do our retiring abilities. Then to fill in my grade 3 slot, I'm playing 4 Dark Dictators. Obviously, once you start getting more of your Phantom Blasters, you're going to want to cut him. You will probably be left with 1 to fill in that 13th spot. He still does work in this deck with his Soul Blasting 3 and giving your front row rear guards plus 5k. It does hurt if you are on PBO because you will end up losing your cross ride number. So you will want to save this for more of a finish play rather than an efficient play. The rest of the deck is quite similar to my free-to-play video. I'm still playing 2 Blaster Darks. I do think in this build, it is very reasonable to go down to even 1 copy. Since we have Javelin in this deck, you never want to draw into Blaster Dark, But because he is very important to have Phantom Blaster Dragon at his 11k, I still want to play the second to make sure if I don't get the Javelin off, I can still draw into him. Now for one of the units that allows the deck to work is Nemain. She has the ability that when she is placed, you counterblast 1, ditch a card from hand, and draw 2. It is a +1 because you go from 1 card in hand, ditch it, draw 2. You've now plus this 1. Her being a 5k does hinder because that means she cannot be placed by herself. You have to place a unit behind her. Her being a 5k compared to her original 3k does help because that means any unit placed behind her can help her get to an 11k threshold, which helps hit interceptors and over the Vanguard. If she is boosted by Charon, it is also making her a 13k attacker, which helps hit over cross-ride numbers. Similar to the free-to-play video, Cursed Lancer is still a very important unit in the deck. I'll talk more about lines of play that allow him to work well in the deck, but just know he is very important in allowing us more flexibility in when we are going to be using our counterblast. Because basically every unit in the deck that is doing work for us requires counterblasting, whether it's the 2 CB from both our Phantom Blasters or the 1 CB for Nemain. And then because I am 1 Nemain short, I am choosing to play 1 Vaha to kind of fill in that draw that the deck needs. You have a lot of flexibility in what you want to put here. I just choose the Vaha because it's the most similar to Nemain. It does cost 1 CB more, but she is a 9k, so that kind of helps. And then to fill out the grade 2s, I'm playing 3 Masquerade. Having him be a 12k attacker is really nice, especially against MLB. Besides that, there are some times where the 10k might feel a little more sturdy because it is a 10k interceptor. Moving on to the grade 1s, we have the 4 PGs, obviously. We have the 4 Javelin. Also, that means we're obviously playing full bow. He's here to allow us the +1 of searching off Blaster Dark off of full bow's ability. I also really like Javelin because since I only have 2 Phantom Blaster Dragons, he allows me to ditch possibly my Dark Dictators or my Dark Mage to go and search for him, which will allow me to, 1, have a really good turn 3 play, and 2, possibly get cross-ride numbers with PBO. I played the 3 Karen just to help make magic numbers, and then as more of a tech piece, I'm playing the 2 Pegasus. Pegasi? I don't know. What's plural for Pegasus? What's plural for Pegasus?
Pegasi, Merriam-Webster, main entry, Pegasus pronunciation, page GNS and S function, noun etymology, Latin, from Greek Pegasus.
What's nice about Pegasus is that you can just place him, give +2k to a unit, and then ditch him. I really like this in combination with our 9ks because then it allows them to get over big interceptors and hit Vanguards. I think you have to play 9 draw in this deck because we are so kind of piece reliant. I don't know if that's the right word because the deck can help itself get to the pieces, so it's not as bad. But the draws basically help us get to those pieces rather than having to stress about it. The crits don't feel like they really add anything because we already have crit pressure with our Phantom Blasters, and stands don't really do anything in the deck because we don't really have that big of rear guards. Now, thinking about Pegasus still, another card that you can possibly play besides him is Witch. She is the hand filtering unit. Both will accomplish basically the same thing of being placed during the main phase, do a thing to help us, and then get sacked for a PB turn. I just prefer Pegasus because it allows us for those magic numbers, like I said, with our 9ks hitting 11s and our Masquerades hitting over cross rides. I do see a lot of reasons why to play Witch, like, to help us get to our pieces a little better. But since I already have enough draw power with our Nemains, my draws, I feel like she kind of got redundant at a point. And then if I need a booster, that means I then can't use her ability. So another card you can look at in playing in the grade 1 slot is Nightmare Painter. She allows us to get cross-ride numbers earlier if you have both PBs in your hand. You can even put Blaster Dark in your soul for Phantom Blaster Dragon if you missed your Dark Ride. I feel like this deck has a lot of draw power, so playing her doesn't feel that bad. I just prefer not to play her because I'd rather have a unit that helps my board state rather than just my Vanguard's number. Now, besides that Vaha spot, like I said, that you have some flexibility, Maka can be played in that spot if you only have her. She doesn't really hinder the deck because she still kind of does what Dark Mage does. At least with Maka, it's specific, so you can call out Pegasus, retire it, get the whole value engine going. I currently just prefer Vaha because it feels more similar to Nemain, and being able to draw into our PGs because we'd have no way of searching for them does help a little bit. So talking about lines of play for the deck, even though the explosiveness comes from our triple rares like Nemain, Phantom Blaster Dragon, Phantom Blaster Overlord, the match that allows us to make the explosion is Cursed Lancer. Timing with him is very important on capitalizing our big wallet. I mean big power, our strength, not how much money is on our debit card. All of our counterblast use is used during the main phase. So to use the countercharging of Cursed Lancer, we have to look a turn ahead. Typically, a good play that I can think of is using one of our Phantom Blasters to pop an Interceptor, then swinging another rear guard at their last Interceptor, sending Cursed Lancer at Vanguard, hitting, countercharging, and then swinging Phantom Blaster at Vanguard. Hopefully it has a crit and its power, so it will be able to hit over defensive numbers. Because what you don't want to happen is that you basically tap yourself out, you're out of CB, you pass turn, your opponent then only gives you 1 damage. Yes, that does mean that you can still use that 1 damage for the main, but we'd much rather have the choice of what CB we want to use rather than let our opponent choose for us. Especially because late game, Phantom Blasters are going to be able to help us push for a win rather than the main, which is just going to help us continue a game plan, if that makes sense. Now, going up against the meta, a Shadow Paladin mirror match sadly is going to go to whoever kind of gets their pieces. The really only strategy you can play against Shadows is giving them only 1 face-up damage, because once you give them 2, then they obviously have more flexibility on their turn, which we've already talked about. Going up against MLB, yes, we do have Blaster Dark that can technically get rid of a Wingull Brave, but that's not really going to happen a lot because that means your opponent's going to have to swing at you twice, and if they're smart, they're not going to. It's going to be kind of a hard matchup, especially going second, because let's say they go for their MLB swing when you're at just grade 2. It's going to put us really far behind. So unless we're able to pop off really hard on turn 3, it's basically just going to be an uphill battle. Now going up against Doe, I think you have maybe the easiest matchup here possibly, because they need a lot of time to get their engine going. Shadow Paladins does have the possibility of playing aggro. It is hard because we don't really have a turn 2 play, but with Masquerade, we do have a 12k attacker on turn 2, so boosting Masquerade does give us the possibility of giving them 2, possibly 3 damage early game. It's all going to be very dependent on what you start your hand with and how much damage your opponent gives you. I've typically noticed that I've won games over Kagero because I've just been able to go off before they are able to go off. It just kind of falls into the same thing of I hope you get your pieces so that you can do your thing. My final thoughts for the deck is I found it to be very forgiving, surprisingly. For someone who hasn't played a lot of Shadows in his past, I misplayed quite a lot. I would push for turns I didn't really need to. I would forget to lay Cursed Lancer thinking I didn't need the CB. Even with all these mistakes, I did get on a 15-game win streak with this build, and only half of them were VP farmers, so take that as you will. If you watched my set 4 pack opening video, then you'll see that a lot of the triple rares that I pulled were for Shadows, which really surprised me because I didn't get to play this deck at all when I was on the Japanese server. I didn't pull any PBOs, I didn't pull any Nemains, and I think I pulled 1 Dragon. But besides that, I just could never really get the deck to work. So since I guess I was pretty lucky with my pulls when it comes to Shadow Paladins, I felt like I needed to give it a try, also because I didn't really have any finished decks. And I had a lot of fun. This deck is surprisingly very fair. It doesn't feel like it runs away with any games, and it doesn't feel like it just flat out loses to any game strategy either. I don't think I'm a full edge boy. I don't think I'm gonna like main Shadows anytime soon, but I'm definitely glad I gave it a try, and I look forward to continuing playing with these pieces that I've been able to pull. Thank you for watching. I never know how to end these. Once again, thank you if you donated or even just participated in different fight stream. It means a lot. Okay, that's all I got.